I want to go over the quiz yesterday, so I'm going to go through each problem. We had a couple issues kind of with the graphs as well with integration, not knowing when we need substitution and when we don't need substitution. Mainly, it was possible not to do substitution on this quiz, but a lot of you... So it was possible not to do it, but a lot of you needed to, evaluated and you needed to do substitution, but you did not. And I'll explain that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about number one. So it gave you a graph and it asked you to find the displacement and the distance traveled. And my function was negative x to the third plus 7x squared minus 10x. So it said it wanted you to find the displacement over that interval, and it was 0 to 5. So displacement is just straight out integral. So I'm going to integrate from 0 to 5 of the function, and that was 125 over 12. The integral was actually, before the evaluation was negative 1/4 x to the fourth plus 7/3 x to the third minus 5 x squared. Now, the difference between displacement and distance is going to be that I wanted to make the negative positive and the positive positive. So what happened, it had zeros. Your velocity function had zeros at 2 and zeros at 5. So what I had to do is I had integrated from 0 to 2, which was negative 16/3, and then integrated from 2 to 5, and that was 63/4. Then what I would do is I would add them together and get 253 over 12. Next was the acceleration with a cosine or a negative sine function. So to find the velocity, what I need to do is I'm going to plug in v of 0 plus the integral from 0 to t of negative sine of x dx. So when I integrate negative sine of x dx, I get cosine of x, and I'm going to evaluate that from 0 to t. Now, here's the 0, so it gave you that v of 0 is 0. So I plugged in that 0 for that, plus the cosine t minus the cosine of 0. Cosine of 0 is 1, so the velocity function v of t is cosine of t minus 1. This is where you cannot just assume that initial, or that plus c is going to be 0, which is the initial s of 0. So with a cosine function or a square root or something like that, you need to actually check it. So you could have gotten the same answer if you just did the plus c and then solved for c. Now, s of t, I'm going to do s of 0 plus the integral of my velocity, which was cosine of x minus 1 dx. So to integrate cosine of x minus 1, that's going to be sine of x minus x, evaluated from 0 or from t to 0. So I'm going to have this 2, which was given of s sub 0. Then sine of t minus t is going to be your evaluation at t. Then I had to evaluate it at 0, and that should have gone away. So my position function should have been sine of t minus t plus 2. The next one was an area function. Now I'm going to quickly graph this one out. So this was x to the third, the square root of x, and x equals 3. So if I graph that out, the square root of x is going to look like this. X to the third is going to look like this. And x equals 3 is going to be over here. Now, what I did is I accepted if you found this, just that area, but you actually, what I wanted is you to find this area as well. So this is 1 where they intersected. This is x to the, it's the square root of x, and this one's x to the third. So what I wanted you to do is, here is where the top function and the bottom function changes. So I'm going to tell you that you are going to have to do that on your quiz on Monday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to integrate from 0 to 1. Your top function would be the square root of x minus the bottom function is x to the third. That is evaluated dx plus the integral from 1 to 3, where your top function would be x to the third, bottom function would be the square root of x. Now, a lot of you had a mistake and put plus this. It is minus. It's the top function minus the bottom function. If I'm going x, if I'm going y, it's going to be the rightmost minus the leftmost. That is the one I did not have you evaluate. I just looked at the integral. Now, the other one that we had issues on is when I gave it to you in terms of y. Now, a lot of you had trouble graphing this, so what I did is I told you to factor it out. So y squared minus y minus 6 is going to factor into y minus 3, y plus 2. So when I solve those, I know y is going to be 3 and y is going to be 2. So I know it's going to cross this x-axis here at negative 2 and positive 3. This is a parabola that's going to open to the right. Then the line was going to be like this. So what I'm going to do is, do you see if I wanted to integrate with respect to x, I would have to find this point, which is hard. I could do it with completing the square. So taking that y squared minus y minus 6 and changing it into a square root function if I had x on the other side, or if I wanted to y equals. But, so what I would have done is I would have solved, so if I would have done that, I would have had to do vertical cross sections and I would have had to change the top function and bottom function here at 0. But if I did y values, what I could do is it would, the rightmost function and the leftmost function would always be the same. So this is going to be the point 0, 2, or 0, negative 2. This was the point 0, 3. And this was the point, it was, y was 5. So all I did to find that point is set y squared minus y minus 6 equal to the 2y plus 4 to find where they intersect. So that would be at y squared minus 3y minus 10. That's going to factor into y minus 5 and y plus 2. I could see that that's going to be at y equals negative 2. That's where they intersect, and at y equals 5. Now, I really don't need to know the x value of this. I could find it, but I'm not going to. Because all I have to do to set up the integral is I'm going to integrate with respect to y. So I'm going to go from negative 2 to positive 5 of the top, or the rightmost function minus the leftmost function. So that is going to be the line 2y plus 4 minus the quantity of the y squared minus y minus 6. And that is with respect to y. So what I would have done is I would have distributed this, and then I would have combined and then integrated. The answer was 343 over 6. Now on number 4, I had my functions x plus 2. So this is where I had to revolve around the x and the y. So the first one is going to be a quadratic, going to open up. Second one was a line. So it's going to look like this. Actually, I'm going to do it in a different color. Now, here's going to be the cross section. So when I go to set up my integral, I know that this is going to intersect at 0, 2 and 4, 10. So if I were to, when I do around the x-axis,